Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program First Contract. This is episode 24, and if you have been following along you will know we have this contract to capture a new Class C asteroid and then to bring it into a stable orbit around Minmus. Having done so, we will then be able to complete this contract, which is to build a new orbital station on a Class C asteroid that we have already brought into orbit around Minmus. Now, in the previous couple of episodes we launched a spy satellite that will enable us to more accurately track the trajectory of our Class C asteroid through the Kerbin system. Now we know we have 20 odd days to launch our asteroid hunter, so we'd better get on and build it. I'll see you in the VAB in just a few moments. Now I have to admit, I haven't actually built an asteroid hunter before and actually successfully captured an asteroid. So this is going to be a fun journey for all of us. So let's begin with a command pod. Now, capturing an asteroid is no mean feat, I suspect, so we are going to need a good few crew to manage this activity. Now, the device we actually need to capture the asteroid, if I can find it, it's not under aerodynamics, it'll be under here somewhere, here we go, is the Advanced Grab It unit. So let's just lob it on the top for a moment. Now this unit apparently looks like a linen basket. Apparently. Odd linen basket. But there you go, linen basket it is. Now we can arm the device and you can see the grabber unit comes out, and all we have to do is ram this into our selected asteroid in order to get a good capture. So that's what we've actually got to bring into contact with our asteroid once we have rendezvoused with it. Now, I suspect we are going to need a few other parts. Now, first things first, let's look at the rendezvous stage. Let's close that up for a moment. Don't need that opened for the second. And let's look at the usual bits and pieces we would put on any return craft. So for example, what's the wrong size? So for example, we would have a decoupler there. We need to get our Kerbals home safely, so we need utility parachutes. Parachutes just being those sort of optional extra utilities that people slap on these sorts of things. So we'll have two of those for the time being. That will do okay. Now, what else? Well, let's put on our Kerbal engineering system. We'll have one of those, not two. We'll have one of those and just drop that down there. Let's just have the compact version. That will be just fine. Now, this is the bit that will ultimately be returning to Kerbin with our heroes aboard. Now, just to make sure we have a bit of battery power, let's lob on a utility battery underneath there, so we will have plenty of battery. Now, for working our way down, we're going to need some control. We are going to need some fuel. And remember, this is the stage that... Oh, I've gone the wrong way. This is the stage... Nope. This is the stage that is going to be capturing our asteroid. So I'm looking for a big fuel tank. There we go. There's a big Rocamax fuel tank. We'll lob that on there. And we will give ourselves a jumbo engine. Now, I don't think the mainsail will be required, but let's have a nice big skipper engine. This is going to be our main unit for actually directing the asteroid. Plenty of fuel and plenty of thrust, because Class C isn't tiny, it's actually quite sizable. However, rendezvousing with our asteroid, we need something a bit more efficient than this. So I think I'm going to use the nuclear engine. And what I'm going to do is we're going to get some structural pylons. Now, structural pylons can be used to eject, or pylons can be used just to hold parts. What I think I'll do, this probably looks the part. What I'm going to do is let's have 4 of those pylons, and then we need to mount 4 of these engines. So what we'll do, let's get another fuel tank. We'll put another fuel tank here on the side. That should be about okay. And then what we'll do is we'll mount the nuclear engines underneath. Right. Now that probably isn't going to be enough fuel. So just in case it isn't enough fuel, let's just get some fuel lines in here. So that should be symmetry of 4 fuel lines. So that's all good. So this is looking like a pretty handy rendezvous and redirecting capsule. So what else do we need? Well, we've got batteries up here, but I always like to overdo it on the batteries. I'd hate to be on the dark side of the planet and need to be doing my manoeuvring and not have any power. So what we'll do is we'll put some little batteries on there. We'll obviously put on some photovoltaic cells. Let's put the, just because we can, the 2x3s, we'll put those on like so. Now I don't want this whole thing to be flopping around, so we'll get our struts, and we'll get 4 struts on like so. There we go, 4 struts. And maybe we need some lights. So let's make some space for the lights. Let's just discard that for a moment. I just want to think about lights. So let's get some lights. I don't think we'll need the super powerful ones. We'll just get the general ones. It's the wrong way. There we go. So let's lean these things over. Whoops. There we go. Come on. Right. Is that leant over enough? I don't know. That'll probably be okay. That'll be fine. It's not as if we won't be millions of kilometres away from Kerbin when we find out the lights are moving. Moving? Lights are pointing in the wrong direction. So let's get our struts and put our struts back on. Structural struts. There we go. So put our struts back on. Okay, so again, that I think makes us quite a good vehicle. We've got battery power, we've got panels, we've got lights. What we haven't got is anything for our hungry Kerbals to consume on their travels. So we need some utility parts, and we need, what are we going to take? We're going to take life support waste. That's probably too small for here. Life support waste large. We've got waste, and we also need life support large. There we go, life support large. There we go. Now strictly speaking, the waste container isn't actually necessary because waste will just be ejected into space, but Kerbals are green, are they not? So they would worry about garbage in space. They would indeed. So that, I think, makes us a fairly good rendezvous unit. So what we will do is we'll use these engines to actually do the rendezvous and this engine to do the redirect. So we need to make sure that we're not jettisoning our engines anytime soon. So we'll make those last in the sequence. We have... let's break this one up and move this piece of staging down here. So we have our rendezvous engines, our redirecting engine, and then obviously that for getting us home. Getting us home. Fuel. Now when we've spent all our fuel redirecting the asteroid, we will need some fuel to get home, and we could do this by one of 2 ways. We could either refuel this capsule or dock another lander, or simply bring another lander or another capsule nearby. So what I think I'm going to do is get some docking ports to give us some options. So we'll get some Clampotron docking ports, and I think we'll just tap them in here. I know we don't need 4 technically, but let's keep symmetry. So we'll have 4 docking ports, and we can use those to rendezvous, service vehicles, refuelers, that kind of thing. So that kind of covers us there. So let's just name this and save it. So there'll be Asteroid Hunter Mark 1. Let's save that. So this is looking pretty good. Now, while I remember, let's put on the panels we cannot do without. 4 of those like so, just in case we are completely battery flat. You know, I don't like covering things up like that, so let's just move that around. Place it there. Is that alright? Yeah. That should be fine. It's all lined up. I don't know why those words don't look lined up. Bigger gap there than there is there. Obviously the graphics don't fit very well. Proportional font and all that. Still, there we go. Let's just quickly save that. So this, I think, makes us a fairly good rendezvous vehicle. Now we need to get this into space, and we need to get to about 100-kilometer orbit, and we know from our massive experience that needs about 4,500 delta V. So let us build the next stage of our vehicle. Get ourselves another decoupler, and then let us get, what do we use? We use an orange tank. Do we really need an orange tank? This is going to be quite heavy. So we'll get an orange tank. We will get a little tiny itsy bitty teeny weeny tank. We will get one of these tuna can tanks and put that on the bottom with a whacking great mainsail. There we go, mainsail. Now the reason you put that little tuna tank on there is a feature of the mainsail engine is to overheat very rapidly when connected directly to an orange tank. So I roleplay this in that the tuna can tank filters the fuel or restricts the fuel flow. It's not got a bigger hole in the tank to feed the engine, so it kind of just funnels the fuel in. Now let us set up our staging so we can accurately see where are we going? What have we got wrong? Do we need another need to split these guys up? Oh, wrong one. Put that in there. Put that in there. Move that over there. Let's, yeah, that's right. So we've got only 1,796 delta V in that, and we need a heck of a lot more. Let's use the NASA parts. After all, that's what they're for. So let's dump that whole section, and we're going to use these monsters. So for that, we need a structural adapter. So let's go get our structural adapter. There we go, our structural adapter. We're going to need some control. You don't get a large NASA control wheel, so we'll use that control wheel in there. Let's get an enormous fuel tank, like so. Let us put these engines on like so. Put it up a little bit further. There you go. That's more like it. Fantastic. That's plenty of delta V. But I don't like leaving these things in space. So what I'm going to do is get another capsule, and we'll use one of these probe bodies, these giant probe bodies. Not that one. We'll use one of these giant probe bodies. We will use a battery and stick that in there. Brilliant. So let's put the finishing touches on this lovely little craft. So we'll need some launch stabilizers. 4 launch stabilizers. We'll sort out the staging in a second. Now I'm not too happy with this being sort of a bit wobbly, particularly on such a powerful launch vehicle. So what I think we will do is let's just creep in here. Can we creep in here? Use this sort of, no. How are we going to do this? we are going to do, what I want to do is I want to see if I can connect up. It's really difficult to get these darn things on. I wish there was a better way of doing it. I want to connect up the engine. Where can you attach to the engine? You can't really attach to the engine. You could attach to here. I'm sure you could attach to there. Okay, we'll do it the other way around. We will put our strut there and connect up like so. There we go. Now, okay, we've stuck a strut straight up the exhaust of the nuclear engine, but it won't matter, will it? No, it won't matter. So hopefully that will hold that on nicely. Okay, so what do we now need to do? We need to sort out our staging. So we need to make sure... Where's that? That is that item, so let's move that up. Now we're going to use the 4 engines next, like so. So these count as 1 engine. You see there's not a 4 there. So these count as 1 engine and they will fire immediately. We don't need this 6th stage, I don't know where that came from. So these will count as 1 engine. They will fire when the stabilizers fire. When we fire this, the 4 nuclear engines will fire. We will then choose at some point in the future to manage these engines manually when the time comes. And ultimately we will attach or detach the whole unit when we're on our way home. So all of these things up here will happen on our way home. So we can save that. So let's just double check what we have. Now, having rearranged our staging, we note that some of our delta V was actually due to this upper stage. Now, we have 2 choices at this point. We could either rearrange the staging, use this engine to get us into orbit and then refuel, but that would take 2 missions, or we could just put some more thrusters on. Or more boosters. So let's try the more boosters approach. Right, what do we need? We need some radial decouplers. We shall try just 2 and see how that works. And what we're going to use again is some parts, these London Fire Brigade parts. Not sure where the London Fire Brigade came into this, but we have the London Fire Brigade parts. Let's just reorganise our engine. So that's that engine. So let's move these boosters into that same section. See, they didn't really add that much. Possibly because we have just messed up. That didn't work very well. How did that happen? So we've got those 2 with that and those decouplers. That's why we've got those decouplers together. So let's move those decouplers around. Pull that up. Staging is so wonderful. We now got 3,000 delta V. It's still not going to be enough. We need more boosters. So let's take those off, up it to 4-way symmetry and paste it back down. So we now should have 4. This is when you break symmetry, well, when you remove a part, change the symmetry, put it back on, it doesn't actually put the symmetry on again. So you've got the 1 you had originally plus the 3 copies. Same here, you've got the 1 you dragged and put back on and the 3 copies. And now we're up to 3.6. It's not really working that well, is it? I wonder if we should approach this differently using asparagus staging. Let's see about how asparagus staging works with these monster vehicles. So 3.6, 4.6. Let's try asparagus staging on the 4 engines as a whole, which means we need to do that. So let's make sure we have that right. We've got 4 facing inwards. That seems to be okay. But they will now need to drop in a... No, that's right, we've got the right stage. There's the stage there. That's right. We've got the 3 and the 1. Okay, that looks good. Let's put some more struts, because these things are going to be super, super powerful. So we need to put some struts across here, just hold those engines in place. And I tend, with these really powerful engines, to put them top and bottom. So we want these to go like so. Is that right? Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Hold those in place. So let's save that. Much better. So our 2 stages now, with the asparagus staging, are now going to amass us 4,488. That's plenty. That should be fine. That's what Jeb always tells me anyway. So let's get the launch stability enhancers in place again. And they're in the right place in the staging sequence. We've got our super massive engines here at the bottom. Let's just lift the whole thing a little bit. Super massive engines. We have our boosters on the outside. These don't fit very well when you have these boosters. I find they don't really fit. Probably better off with the single massive engine. Probably work well with that. But I kind of like the other one. So we'll go like this. That should be good. So we've got our 4 boosters on the outside. More boosters, always good. They're going to fire first. We then drop away the boosters. Carry on firing with our massive central engine here until we get into orbit. It'll all work. I guarantee you it will all work. So let's save this. But before we go out to the launch pad, we need to go to the monitoring and tracking station and see what our spy satellite can tell us about our launch inclination. I'll see you there. Well, here we are in the tracking station, and if you've been following along, you have been following along, haven't you? You will remember we put this probe into orbit to satisfy 2 requirements. One, to satisfy a contract. I mean, why else are we here? But also to act as a spy satellite. It's in a perfectly equatorial orbit, although it is rather a long way out from Kerbin. But we can use it to spy on asteroids. Now we have 3 candidate asteroids, which we have been tracking. We have this one, which will be encountered in 17 days. This one, which we will encounter in 109 days. And this one, that we will encounter in 57 days. So we do have 3 options, 3 chances to capture an asteroid. But let's fly this mission. Our lovely jubbly spy satellite, and see how it can help us with our launch. I'll see you in a second. So here we are looking at our Ion satellite, which we crammed into our SSTO. Isn't it beautiful? But that's not why it's here. It satisfied the contract, and now it's going to do some asteroid spying. So let's go over to the map and find our asteroid. Is it this one? I think it's this one. And set it as a target. There we go, 17 days, that's the right one. And this now gives us a trajectory. Now, as you can see, this one is a particularly handy asteroid because it's actually not far off the same orbit as Minmus. So that's going to be really good for when we've captured it. But one thing we need to do is just set our trajectory right for when we launch. And as with most things, we have ascending and descending nodes. Now, of course, because this is not a complete orbit, we've only got the one node. So we have a descending node, in this case, of 80 degrees. Now, as you notice, the asteroid is entering from the south and exiting at the north. So we need to be travelling at about 80 degrees rather than our usual 0 degrees east-west kind of orbit. And we need to start that orbit, or rather start that launch, when Kerbal Space Center is underneath the descending node, so that we are approximating the orbital trajectory of our asteroid. And in that way we will save a whole load of fuel changing our trajectory. So all we need to do now is get our craft back on the launch pad with our handy threesome. That didn't sound right, did it? Our handy trio of excellent pilots, Jeb, Bill and Bob, and get them ready to launch right underneath this descending node. How are we going to do that? Well, let's use the marvels of time acceleration and just watch the planet rotate until, roughly speaking, Kerbal Space Center is somewhere here. It doesn't have to be accurate. We're never going to get it spot on, but let's at least get it close. And there we can see time warp rotating, so we're going to lose, I don't know, half a day. So we'll get down to 16 days before our asteroid encounter. Here's the peninsula, and here's, I always think this looks a bit like Africa. So this looks a bit like the Malaysian peninsula. Is it Malaysia? And this always looks a bit like Africa, a bit like Europe. So I don't know if that's supposed to be the case, but there you go. So let's just stop time warp right there. So we've lost, what, half a Kerbin day. So if we now come out, we'll see we're more or less underneath the descending node. And if we launch about now, going in sort of this direction, 80-degree inclination, we will be more or less going in the right orbit. So let's head on out to the launch pad with our trio of experts and get cracking. I'll see you there in a minute. Right, well, the astute amongst you will notice we are not on the launch pad. And the more astute amongst those will probably realise there are some things missing from this craft. And that includes the kitchen sink. Now, we're going to be a long way from home when we need to do this rendezvous, so including the kitchen sink might be a good idea. And in particular, there are two things I think we need to add, and the first of those is RCS. Now, we're not actually docking with this craft. These docking ports are there for things to rendezvous with it in the event we need to refuel it or rescue crew members. Rescue crew members? Rescue crew members. So, let us add just a smidgen of RCS fuel with one of these miniature round tanks. Let's make sure we have a symmetry of 4. Let's just remove this section so we can put on the right centre of mass and then add some RCS thrusters. Now what these RCS thrusters are going to be used for is just manoeuvring our craft shortly before we plunge into its surface in order to grab it. So this will just give us a little bit more control than the control wheel might. So just adds that extra bit of last minute control. So that's that added. Now there's one other thing I did think we might need, and that is good old separatrons, because I don't want these tanks to crash into this rather bulky central stage. This bottom stage here rather does stick out. So from experience I have really thought very little about what I need to do here, to be perfectly honest, but I think separatrons at the top to push away the tanks from the central core, which will then ascend through the falling tanks. So I think that will work. Let's just make sure it's sorted into the right staging groups, and I reckon we're now ready to get to the launch pad. So let's save this and I'll see you out there. Well, it looks like we are ready to go. We have our three famous crewmen, Bill, Jeb and Bob. So let's get the SAS on. I think we have plenty of thrust, so we'll not throttle up. We will just launch away. Now, we are going to need to change our inclination to match our 80 degrees that we measured previously in the map view from our spy satellite. And of course, during the launch, we need to make sure we are controlling our terminal velocity. And we can check our terminal velocity down here, 121, so we're meeting the terminal velocity. Let's just keep an eye on that, throttle back a little bit as we ascend. Now, Jeb seems perfectly happy with this ascent. Bill and Bob don't look as confident. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go straight up until the boosters are exhausted, which will be 10 or 11 kilometers I'm guessing, and then we will start our turn, our gravity turn. But of course we won't be turning over in our usual east-west direction where you can see our debris from a previous mission. We are in fact going to be going much more northerly, 80 degrees northerly in fact. So let's just keep an eye on our staging and get ready to discard our boosters. Terminal velocity seems to be matching up pretty well, so that's got throttle pretty good. Here we go. And away they go. Now let's throttle up as we now start to turn over. Make sure we go the right way. I think it's Bill and Bob at the controls because Jeb's too interested in looking out of the window. So we'll be going more or less 90 degrees. Let's just turn a little bit away from that. There we go, 10 degrees off, that should be fine. Look at our heading at the bottom there. Don't need to keep a check on our terminal velocity any longer. We just need to look for about 100 apoapsis height here, 100 kilometers. So we're getting up to, here we go, our inclination's going towards 80, that should be fine. We'll make any final adjustments when we're in orbit. So that's got us up to our apoapsis height of 100, so let us, if we can get focused on curbing, get focused on our orbit, add our maneuver, and let's circularize. Now we are going to have a bit of adjustment to make sure our inclination is 100. Whoop, there we go, 124. Inclination's 100. Our apoapsis and our periapsis are circular 100. That should be fine, but we're also going to need to adjust our inclination, but we will do that last. So let's just move this lump of steel around to the blue maneuver node. You can just make out the music in the background, so we are now at an orbital height. Now we've got a 33-second burn, which we would do on or around the 15. Now we've only got 861 delta V in this section, so I think we will start early because, as you remember, we've only got these rockets to do the rest of the burn, so I think we will start a bit early. So we'll start on the 33. It'll fire these engines for a short amount of time, about 20 seconds, and the remaining 13 seconds are going to take one heck of a long time to burn off. So here we go. We'll use the Z key to maximise the throttle immediately, as we have now learnt. Now, I wonder if any of you have spotted the deliberate mistake. That needs to be there. So, slight mistake corrected. And we can now continue our orbital insertion maneuver. So we've got 350 delta V still to go. Let's go have a look at the map view, see how we are going along. See apoapsis there, increasing very slightly. But I think that's the least of our worries. Inclination 74, 75 degrees is going to be by the time we finish. That should be just fine. Any last minute adjustments can be made when we are in orbit. Still slightly creeping ahead with apoapsis height. And here we should be coming with our periapsis. There we go. As it comes, just a few tens of delta V remaining. And let's kill it there. Don't want to overdo it, don't want to waste fuel. And there we are. A perfectly reasonable, if not round, orbit. And you can see our debris falling back into the ocean near the northerly ice cap. Well, I think we have done just fine. Let's close up Kerbal Engineer, just have a look at our craft as it zooms around its orbit. Let's just send a postcard back to Kerbal Space Center so they know we have succeeded. And that's excellent. Now we have used up a little bit of fuel, so it might be an idea just to refuel a little bit, ready for our rendezvous. Depending on how much time we have, we will see if we, because we haven't actually done a rendezvous. For all the time I spent saying we needed these docking ports, we haven't actually done a rendezvous. So perhaps we should do a rendezvous. But that's something for the next episode. I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you would like to like or subscribe, please do so. Take care. Bye-bye.